The theme that I would like to explore this evening, it's evening in Thailand, is the theme of forgiveness, because it's actually it's an important practice, but it's not very well understood. And it is important to recognize that there is kind of nuance and sophistication required in doing this practice correctly. Firstly, why do we need to do it? It's a good thing to ask. Why? Why do I need to forgive? You know, with the sense of self, the contraction of the sense of self, our understanding of what is right and wrong. Oftentimes there's a feeling of, well, I was right, I was innocent, they were wrong. Why should I forgive them? They're wrong. So I think you'll recognize that it's not a very illustrious, radiant or peaceful mind state. And there is a big sense of self there. And when we're holding on to a bit of a grudge, there's also aversion there. So this isn't going to liberate us. So one of the selfish reasons we offer forgiveness is so that we can get on with liberating our mind from contraction and grasping at negative qualities. But it's not necessarily easy to do, because when a person feels hurt, that's normally the cause of a grudge. This is a feeling of hurt. Somebody did something that was hurtful. That could be in childhood. Oftentimes with parents, it can be a repeated pattern. So, or a family member or a relative, neighbor, teacher. Sometimes there is a repetition of a hurtful behavior, which can become a wound, something very painful. And so then the idea of forgiving, well, then there's resistance. There can be resistance to that. So that's all very normal. It's important to understand that when we hold a grudge, we're adding to our suffering. So when painful things happened in the past, that really is in the past. And when we decide to hold on to that and not let it go, in a way that's almost like abusing oneself. You continue to abuse yourself by holding on to your grudge. So another way, a way that I find approaching this subject in a way that's helpful, is that when I'm able to offer forgiveness, I'm taking the angry grudge off of my heart so that I can be serene and spacious and cool and happy. So that's a good motivation. That's a good reason to want to be able to forgive. It's important to understand that forgiveness isn't stupidity. So forgiveness is a wise practice. So when you forgive someone, it doesn't mean the thing they did was not wrong. So this is a thing where it's a bit sophisticated and nuanced. We have our understanding of conventionally what is skillful and wholesome, and conventionally speaking, what is unskillful and unwholesome, sometimes even downright cruel, mean, nasty, malevolent, malignant, whatever. People can do horrible things. So we can know if something was unskillful, horrible, unreasonable, whatever it was. You can know that. That doesn't change. But you offer forgiveness. Now, when you offer forgiveness, it doesn't mean that you wipe the slate completely clean, forget the experience, and you open your heart with trust to that person. So this is a different subject. Trust is one thing. Recognizing skillful and unskillful is another, and forgiveness is yet another thing. You can know something's unskillful. You can know that a person may still not be trustworthy, and you can forgive them. So you know that you need to be careful around this person, but you forgive them because you don't want your heart to be weighed down with angry grudge. You want your mind to be peaceful. You don't want to make karma with the root kilesa of irritation and aversion. You don't want to hold on to the upakilesa, one of the 16 upakilesas of grudge holding. There's another kilesa, contentiousness. We don't want the mind to be contentious. We don't want the mind to hold on to grudges. When we die, when we have to leave this life, you don't want to be thinking about the people who you're still angry at that you're holding grudges of. If you do, it's very difficult to have a good rebirth. And also the likelihood of meeting that person again because of your angry grudge is quite high. Another selfish reason to let go of our grudges. You don't want to make negative, contentious karma with the beings that you find difficult. Forgive them, spread loving kindness to them. And then you might not have to see them again. May you be well, may you be happy, may you be very well, may you be very happy. And I sometimes do that. It's part of the process, isn't it? May you be well, may you be happy somewhere else. You know? That's not pure metta yet. That's somewhere along the process. And of course, we need to be mindful that people really change. A person who was unskillful or mean towards us this lifetime may have been acting out certain socialization they received. They may be repeating habits they learned. In another life, under different circumstances, the very same person may be one of your parents, maybe one of your teachers, and may be very kind to you. So because the relationships really change, we can see that within one life. The people who were our best friends 15, 20 years ago, maybe they're not your best friends now. And that's normal. The people who you call your best friends, it changes. And some people that you didn't used to like, sometimes they become our friends. We can see this within one life. So we try not to hold a fixed perception of this as a horrible, bad person. This is a wonderful, beautiful person. We understand that according to conditions and according to the law of impermanence, the nice people can become the horrible people can become the nice people. Within one lifetime, how much more so in a paradigm of many lives. So how do we do it? So I recommend the way I train people to use mental recitation in conjunction with the breath. So we remind ourselves of our Buddhist practice. We remind ourselves of our refuge. I've gone to refuge to Buddha. I've gone to refuge to Dhamma. I want to liberate my mind. So we remind ourselves on the in-breath. That gives us courage. I have a refuge. So breathing in, Buddhang Saranang Gacchami. Or it can be breathing in, Namo Buddhaya, homage to the Buddhas. Breathing out, Metta, Karuna, Mudita, Upekkha, Ahosi. With metta, compassion, empathic joy, equanimity, I offer forgiveness. So we have our practice of the 4 Brahma Viharas. Breathing in, Namo Buddhaya. Breathing out, Metta, Karuna, Mudita, Upekkha, Ahosi. You can use English if it's easier. You can use Chinese if it's easier. Breathing in, I go for refuge to the Buddha. Breathing out, I offer loving kindness and compassion and forgiveness. Whatever works, whatever words work. But we remind ourselves we're Buddhists, we have a refuge, we have a goal for liberation, we're uprooting kilesas from our minds. Because of that, with loving kindness, with compassion, with empathic joy, and with forgiveness, I offer, with equanimity, I offer forgiveness. I think it's okay in cases where there's been a lot of hurt. It's okay if there's a lot of resistance to the forgiveness. It's okay to negotiate with it a bit. There might be the feeling, I just don't want to forgive them because it really was wrong and I really am right. Okay, be a very deep habit of grasping in this way. So negotiate with it. Say, can you forgive them 20%? It's like, okay, I'm going to forgive you 20%. I'm still holding my grudge 80% because you were so wrong and I was so right. But I'll let you off 20%. It seems a bit silly, but the thing is, it does affect the mind because it's like you've got 5 fingers grasping something, you just took one off. You're only grasping with 4 fingers now. And when you kind of can see the foolishness of holding the grudge to that degree, this is like the thin end of the wedge. You know, maybe next month you can forgive another 30%. Okay, I've half forgiven you. I'm still half angry at you, but I've half forgiven you. There's already more spaciousness around it, right? You're not holding it so fully. And you'll probably feel the joy and the lightness of not holding the grudge so tightly because it won't oppress the mind so fully. There's another thing that really is important to contemplate, but often people use it unskillfully. They either simply don't believe it and don't take it on, or they use it to beat themselves up. And that's the understanding of karma. For myself, I really believe it's the case that the most painful relationships and the most painful things that we experience in this life is because we did cause other people that kind of pain in the past. This is really important to know because the person who was the abuser or the contentious person or the friend who betrayed you or whatever, they were like a medium or a channel for some energy that was going to ripen. And so in a way, we have to stop blaming them. And we have to be spiritually mature. We have to take it on the chin. I had this coming. And we do this with compassion. We don't do it to beat ourselves up. We understand that in past lives, acting under the influence of ignorance, I did stupid things. Motivated by greed, motivated by aversion, all sorts. You read that list of the 16 upakilesas. Cruelty is one of them. Domineering is one of them. Competition is one of them. Jealousy is one of them. Very good list. 16 upakilesas, the main negative qualities which affect our minds, all of our minds, if you're not an arahant or a Buddha. So we've all had these dark qualities banging around in consciousness for many, many lives, and we've acted on them and we've done unskillful things that cause pain to others. So it comes back. So if we can contemplate, like, I mean, if it's too hard, if you don't want to, I'll see a lot of people have like low self-esteem or they're withholding goodwill, they have self-aversion. So the idea that I caused this to myself becomes another reason to hate yourself. That's not what I'm teaching. I'm teaching compassion. I'm teaching that you recognized under the power of ignorance and delusion, you acted unskillfully. You know, how sad, how terrible. Now this is coming back to you. You have to support yourself through it with kindness. It's not a reason to beat yourself up. So we need to do quite a bit of work on making sure that foundation of metta is there. And then if that works better at first, if contemplating karma is too painful or a person isn't able to contemplate it skillfully yet, then just work on the fact that because you care for yourself, you want to heal, you want to take the heaviness of the grudge off the heart and the mind, and you want the mind to heal by putting things, the past down. That's enough. But for myself, when there's been real contentiousness, when I've been really upset with someone and I really didn't want to put it down, the acknowledgement of the element of karma, for me, is very humbling. It's like, who am I to be? And also there's this awareness of, okay, this is a painful situation. Is adding contentiousness and grudge and self-righteous anger going to help it? What kind of causes am I sowing now, and how will that ripen in the future? So we have to take some bitter medicine, and we have to. So if we can understand that the painful things we experience are the result of causes generated deep in the past, then we will want to forgive quickly, and we won't want to invest much in negative, contentious. And we have compassion for ourselves and we have compassion for others, and we take the metta practice as kind of a refuge. Like whenever whenever you have the painful memory, rather than go off, it's like, picking scabs, sticking your finger into the painful part of the wound again. Rather than doing that, he shouldn't have said that. She shouldn't have done that. I was so vulnerable. It should have been this. They should have kept their agreement. They shouldn't have betrayed me. It was wrong. It was wrong. It was wrong. Okay, it was wrong. But it's the past already. And rather than picking the scab, put some balm on it. May I be well. May I be happy. Replacement by opposites. You just keep saying those phrases. And at first it feels like you can't do it. It's too painful. It's just words. But it's just words in the beginning. And these words, as we train in the metta practice, they become very powerful. The mind is something that can be trained, thank goodness. We're practicing dana, sila, bhavana, generosity, ethics, and mental cultivation. The mind can be cultivated. At first, breathing in, may I be well, breathing out, may I be happy, doesn't seem to have any meaning. When you really consider what it means to be well, when you really consider what it would mean to be happy, that's what you're wishing yourself. And when the mind becomes familiarized with, accustomed to holding loving kindness in the heart, when you breathe in, may I be well, that energy, that blessing comes because you've trained it to, becomes very powerful. So you can feel a painful memory coming up or something's triggering you, you're reminded of something, rather than go into the long spiel in the mind about why it shouldn't have been that way, why it wasn't fair, why you're still angry. Don't go there. Go straight to the heart, straight to the painful feeling. Breathing in, may I be well. Breathing out, may I be happy. Breathing in, may I be well. Breathing out, may I be happy. And you replace a painful negative emotion with a wholesome one. Lord Buddha, the divine abiding here and now. So we really have the capacity, when the mind wants to fall into a hungry ghost state or a contentious demonic state, we can stop it. So don't go there. Go to the Brahma realm. You have choices. At the very least, go to the truly human realm. Offer forgiveness. Abhaya dana. Lord Buddha describes the offering of forgiveness as a higher form of generosity than giving nice things. It's a type of generosity, offering fearlessness. The out-breath. Sometimes you can use the word abhaya. Abhaya, metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha. I offer fearlessness to you. I'm not going to take revenge. I'm not going to be contentious. I'm forgiving you. Ahosi, forgiveness. So we have the metta as a support. We have the practicing letting go, being willing to let go of grudges, recognizing negative qualities as negative qualities, and recognizing we should let go of them. The 4 great efforts, the effort to let go is one of them. And then we have the wisdom aspect of contemplating the law of karma, which when you really consider it deeply, the law of karma is impersonal. So when we're thinking of it on the personal level, it's like, I don't want to think about that because I don't want to feel even more guilty. I did enough bad stuff this life. I don't want to think what I got up to last life. But if you expand it out, 8 billion human beings all experiencing the result of past karma, it's impersonal. But we have to understand this law of karma because we have to work with the wholesome spectrum of karma, because the wholesome karmas are what leads us to going beyond karma. Wholesome conditions lead us to the unconditioned. That's what the Eightfold Path is. We're just chanting that in the Dhammacakka Sutta that we chanted together. The Eightfold Path is the wholesome karmic conditions that lead to the unconditioned. I'm just trying to think. Sometimes I like to offer a personal story to make it kind of relevant to people. sometimes I can give any number of stories, but sometimes I'm not supposed to reveal the names of people who reveal their psychic powers. So I have to choose my stories carefully. Otherwise I get in trouble. So. Yeah, so I think I can give the story of my own mother. I don't think she'd mind. My mother's home was bombed when she was a very little girl in Manchester by German Allied forces, and her family emigrated to Australia. And her parents' relationship fell apart, not so surprisingly, because of a lot of stress, losing your house, losing your life, losing your country. And so my grandmother, not having, in those days, there wasn't social security for single mothers. So my grandmother put my mother and her sisters in a Catholic orphanage, and some of the nuns there were quite abusive. And one nun in particular didn't like my mother's singing voice. They were forced to chant hymns, and none didn't like the fact that my mother had an English accent. So she used to slap her face, and she told her that I'm gonna whip that plum out of your mouth, young lady. You think you're better than us, or whatever it was. My mother was about 8 or 9 at the time. And so my mother, understandably, was very angry at this nun. And but I was talking to her about it when she was about, I guess, 60. She brought it up. I was visiting my mom and she brought it up. I've forgotten her name now. But it was quite bad. There was a royal inquiry into that particular institution, and the government decided that any child that lived there for a period of 5 years was automatically entitled to compensation. It was basically a given that everybody in that institution in that period of time was abused. No questions asked, come and get the check. So it was bad. But I said to my mum, so because she was telling the story, it's okay, it's an early childhood trauma and it was a repeated trauma, it's very painful. But I asked Mum, how many years ago is that now, Mum? She left the orphanage at 13. I think she was there for 5 or 6 years. So what's that? 60 minus 13, 47. So it's 47 years ago. And I asked her, how often have you had angry thoughts at this woman? And I asked her, is she still alive? No, she's dead. So she's passed on already. And I said, this lady kind of screwed up your childhood. Do you want to give her the power to keep screwing up your adult life and your old age? Do you really want to keep thinking of this woman? I said, I'm just asking you, for the sake of your own happiness, can you just forget her now? Can you just leave it behind you? Because it's nearly 50 years ago. Don't give her the power to ruin your happiness or your chances for happiness now. And my mum, to her credit, she could hear this, and she woke up the next morning, we were having breakfast, and she says, you know what? I forgave that nun last night. And she looked, to me, my mother looked happier from that day. She just looked happier. She looked lighter and less angry. And there were little strange kind of feng shui things that you notice. I'm quite a visual person. I'm quite observant. So my mother had a silver candelabra and she had black candles in them. And I'm like, it's almost like doing a puja to darkness, embracing the darkness. I said to my mum, I said, Mum, I don't know about these black candles. Do you mind if I get rid of them for you? Yeah, you can take the black candles out. So, can I suggest that you put in a more cheerful color? Yeah, all right. And it's like, yeah, forgive it. It's like teaching my mum to stop doing homage to angry, grudge, resentment, and hurt. Throw it away. put some white candles in there, recollect the people who helped you this life, and don't give power to the people that harmed you a long time ago. I couldn't tell my mum at the time, but when you think of what that nun did to little children, for myself, I have a lot of compassion for the nun as well, not just my mum, because you know what's going to happen in her next childhood, right? Sometimes when we're thinking of the adult who's the abuser, yeah, a lot of anger, self-righteousness, desire to punish comes up. Imagine that person reborn as a little child with no awareness of what they did previously, being abused. Then there isn't the same anger and wanting them to be punished. There's instantly a sense of wanting to rescue the abused child. That's the goodness of the human heart. We see something defenseless being harmed, we want to help it. So people who harm will be harmed. And that's a tragedy. That's very sad. So I can actually hold that lady in the heart of compassion, in the heart of loving kindness, and hope that she eventually works through the karmas and learns to lift her mind above cruelty. And but I was happy for my mum that she was able to forgive her. I chatted to my mum this morning. She's 83. She'd just taken the dog for a 8-kilometer walk along the beach. She's healthy. She's got a good memory. She still drives. She still cooks for herself. She lives alone. So, I think letting go of our grudges and forgiving people is very conducive to good health and good karma. Good karma will support. Lord Buddha explains that the offering of forgiveness creates good karma as well. So you actually get something from giving up your grudge. You get a pile of good karma too. It's a good deal. For myself, in the early years of Anandagiri Monastery, I had some challenges in my relationship with my beloved teacher, Thanajana Nun, who I was building a monastery in a part of Thailand where I didn't have disciples, and he'd encouraged me to accept the invitation, and I'd ask him, well, only if you help, Lampo, only if you visit and give me encouragement. He said, I will. And so I invited him, and he cancelled the day before, 1 year into it. Rather than feeling blessed, I felt cursed. Rather than feeling supported in public, I felt embarrassed. Well, guess what? It happened the next year too. And the next year. And the next year. It was 6 years before my teacher visited me at my monastery. It was 7 times that he cancelled his visit. Now, keep in mind, during that time, my beloved teacher was able to go to Chiang Mai. He was able to go to Korat. He was able to go to Saraburi. So these are provinces just a couple of hours away. He was able to go to China, India, Singapore, Australia. Every bloody where except here. So you would understand how terribly hurt I felt, let down, betrayed. My father figure, not blessing me, cursing me. At least that's how it felt at the time. So when we had a monk-to-monk chat about it, hey, Lampo, you remember when you said you were going to come and bless me and give me your support? That was the condition I accepted the monastery on. Yeah. I'm still going to come, he said. I'm still going to come one day when the conditions are right. I said to him, the thing that frustrates me most, because Western monks have probably more than Thais, have big attachments to agreements. An agreement is an agreement. And you're a monk and you're supposed to be an enlightened monk. So truthfulness is truthfulness and virtue is virtue and agreement is an agreement. And you haven't honored your word. It's not truthful. It's not virtuous. What's going on, Arahant? My dear beloved Arahant, what's going on here? Fortunately, my teacher does allow me to have a frank conversation with him. Of course, I put my hands respectfully and ask for permission. I love and respect my Ajahn. And he says, well, you and I didn't just make good karma, Ajahn Achalo, in past lives. You and I, now I'm revealing his abilities. I said I wasn't going to reveal his abilities. But anyway, so my beloved teacher could see that we were in a war effort at one point in time. in Thailand in a past life when we were liberating Thailand from a Burmese occupation about 400 years ago. And so we were brothers, apparently, but we killed a whole bunch of people. And this is the thing, you get born as a woman, you often end up being stuck at home and having a lot of babies. You get born as a man, you often end up being sent into bullets and spears and daggers. It's the human world at this point in the eon. It gets better for periods. So what's the most precious thing to a human being? It's their life. How does a human being feel as they're dying? Well, they're being separated from everything. They're being separated from their mother, their father, their wife, their children, their life, their possessions. What do they feel? Normally, they feel grief. If they're not well-practiced Buddhist practitioners who've trained in letting go, they have some attachment. They feel tremendous grief. So in being involved in taking other human beings' lives, and so my teacher was able to see that if he came to visit me, he would become unwell. And this was during a time where he had high blood pressure, low blood plates, and arrhythmia of the heart. And so he couldn't really tell me, I can't come because I come and see you or I'll get sick. That wouldn't have cheered me up. So he was building a chedi, a stupa, and once the chedi would be built to a certain point in time, he would see that the life enhancing and life increasing merits of building a large stupa would give him the robustness of health that he would be strong enough to come. But it took 6 years. And the thing I said to him, the frustrating thing for me is I know you've got a reason for not coming and you're not telling me what it is. So you better tell me, because I can't stand it anymore. And when I understood that my teacher wouldn't, if he came, there was a risk to his health, then I was fine with him not coming, actually. And I started to think in terms of how I could help support my teacher's health. But he had to be aware of timing. Like if he told me in the first year, so I'll be able to come at the end of the 6th year, I'll be like, okay, bye. That's too hard. But he knew that if he said, yeah, I'm coming, yeah, I'm coming, yeah, I'm coming, that 6 years later, brokenhearted as I was, I would still be there. And you know, broken hearts heal if you know how to heal them. And there were some other things as well. He says, Ajahn Acho, in past lives, you broke many hearts. I can't imagine that that's possibly true, but that's what he said. So in terms of karma for myself, when I really reflected that, because I trust his abilities, it's like when I really reflected on the point, what am I going to do? I'm going to sit here and be angry at an arahant because of the bad karma that I made in past lives? That's not going to help the situation, is it? And if you know how to think wisely, it's like there are other ways to think about this. My teacher didn't come for 6 years, and even without him coming, I was able to build a monastery. You know, there's different ways of thinking about it. I didn't have to feel cursed. I didn't have to feel left down. I could feel like, hey, I did it without his help. And more importantly, I started to think, rather than sit here and think of the ways my teacher hasn't helped me, why don't I think in terms of how I can help my teacher? Which is a much more wholesome way of thinking. It took me 6 years to work it out, but I worked it out. Some of our biggest lifelong lessons, they're not easy to learn. I want to talk a little bit about the forgiveness ceremony. I used to think sometimes in Thai Buddhism, there's too much of this asking forgiveness. It's like you didn't even do anything wrong and you're asking forgiveness again. Now I understand it differently. I think it's really important to ask forgiveness, particularly when you haven't done something wrong. Because what you're doing is you're establishing a habit, you're establishing a training, so that when something does go wrong and it's samsara, believe me, it's coming. When the situation changes somehow and you are upset with your teacher, you have this habit of offering forgiveness. I know a person, I won't mention their name. They were my student for 15 years. This person made a mistake. I admonished this person and there was a little bit of irritation in my tone. After I admonished this person, it was over. I'm just going to tell them what they did that was wrong, and then it's over for me. I'm not holding a lifelong grudge. You did something wrong, this was wrong. This person hasn't spoken to me for 1.5 years since I said that one thing. So what this is, a few seconds of speech, well-intentioned, no ill will, no malice, from somebody who cares for you. This person has hurt feelings, and they throw away a wholesome, skillful relationship with their teacher of 15 years. I'm sorry to say it, it's pathetically weak. It's very sad. But we need to understand we all have this weakness. We can all be that pathetic. And so we have to train ourselves not to do that. When your feelings are hurt, see it in context. How many seconds was the person speaking to you? Did you actually really do something wrong? Well, I was listening to a talk by Ajahn Anand the other day. He said, even Sotapannas have anger. If you do something wrong, they can get angry. Why are people expecting their teachers to be Buddhas? No, I'm not saying to choose a teacher who's malevolent or abusive. But if you know your teacher is basically kind, when the day comes when he or she disappoints you, you have to have this practice of being able to forgive them. Because you might, what we do is we recollect that moment of hurt again and again and again, and it's as though they let us down hundreds of times. And we have to train ourselves, don't do that, don't do that. Keep it in perspective, mindful of how many words were said, how many minutes, in the context of how many years. Don't make a big deal out of this. And if you actually did something wrong, you have to take it on the chin. It's your teacher's duty to point out when you make a mistake. If we have a suitable level of humility and modesty, we say, thank you. Thank you for pointing out my error, especially if we know it's coming from kindness, from someone with wisdom. But we all have that ability. I'm very glad I didn't, I'm very glad I maintained my relationship with my teacher, even though I was disappointed for 6 years. I did not walk away from that relationship. As a result of that, we are now closer. And he probably helped me to resolve a lot of painful karma. So later on, he was very involved in helping me to receive my Thai citizenship. And so we have to patiently endure. We have to forgive. We have to remind ourselves that we don't have all the information. We have to remind ourselves that karma is playing itself out. Don't add more negative karmas that will increase our pain in the future. Try to see painful experiences as an opportunity of purification of sorts. And we keep going. Roll with the punches, as it were. Punched again, rolled again. I forgive you. I've got better things to do than hold grudges. So I offer that for your reflection. I hope that something I said may have been helpful to you. I wish you deep healing. I wish you every capacity to forgive everyone, everything, all the time, while still maintaining your mindfulness and clear comprehension of what is skillful, what is unskillful, who is trustworthy, who isn't, but not carrying the burden of the grudge, not generating negative karma. So, on your path to liberation.